what it do, what it don't, what it will, what it won't. It is another Friday, which means it's another opportunity to get together and record the experience that is known as the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. Ball Hawk Sports Talk is where sports, business, and entertainment collide. Formerly, it is known as the place where the managerial decisions of big finance meet the weekly storylines of sports and entertainment. If you had to say it in a pop culture sort of way, you would call this experience where show me the money meets just give me the damn ball. I am in the building today feeling a bit solo. And solo because my man, the Big Flow Show, has a very, 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 very worthy conflict. His son and the rest of college football started last night. Slippery Rock played their first game, comeback win. We'll get more into that overtime. So he has a conflict today. He won't be here because he is being a sports dad. So I stand here alone. And today of all days is probably the day that I should be, air quote, alone. Today's episode is going by the title of Race to the Bottom. And race to the bottom in terms of this phrase, when it was coined when it was introduced to me, I'll say, it was when I was in law school. And it talked about this competitive situation where states were trying to create laws to attract companies to form their business, to be headquartered in their state. It was being very lax with taxation rules and liability rules. And so there's this competitive advantage where companies, and truth be told, now you would expand it to government, individuals, right? By cutting standards, you attract people, and it's called race to the bottom. Today's episode is going by race to the bottom for very different reasons. On August the 28th of 2012, I lost what to that point was my best friend in life, my mother. And it came on the heels of the day after my son was born. So this whole 24-hour window is always interesting to me because I get to celebrate my man, Thatcher Anson Brown, who without him, I literally would have been at the bottom and spiraled. Without that event, the birth of my child, because I was dealing with the reality that my mother, facing terminal cancer, I was about to lose her. I was about to lose my best friend. I was going to lose my hero. And if I get emotional today, I'll get emotional today. We'll deal with it. But it was because my son was born that I was strong enough to handle losing my hero, my mother, my best friend, the person who I had looked up to for every day that I could remember of my life to that point. And so Race to the Bottom is our episode title because there was also a race for me to get to the bottom, to get home. I was flying home to see my mother. I was trying to fly back here. There was a hurricane. I remember 2012. Somehow, some way I got on that plane. Not somehow, some way. I will, at least today, reveal my faith. But for God, I got on a plane in a hurricane. I made it from Fort Lauderdale down to Miami in about 19 minutes because my best friend waited for me at the airport while I'm crying. He's crying. He couldn't leave. And I called and said, hey, man, I missed this flight. They're going to cancel this flight. Are you still around? He's like, I haven't left yet. I've never seen you that emotional. So we make it to Miami. I get on that plane, but for God, I make it up here. My son is born quickly. He came out just as aggressive as he has been. He maintains his aggression. Came out quickly, and thank God that he did. I then tried to catch a plane back to Fort Lauderdale. I raced to the bottom. And ironically, they closed the gate, they closed the door at the gate. All I had was a laptop just trying to make it back home. And they closed the gate. Before then and since, I've never seen anyone open the gate for someone. They opened that door, that gate for me. But for God. So race to the bottom. I got down to Fort Lauderdale. I got to spend the last night with her. And by then, because she was dying at that point of lung cancer, so the breathing was labored. She was not there with us, but in terms of communicating, but was there with us in terms of knowing everything that was going on. So I'm told by the medical professionals. And I got to hear the breathing, and she passed right around 10 a.m., which is why we're starting the show around now. And my race to the bottom, emotionally, and I'll be honest, spiritually, because you question, how could a lady who's so amazing, never smoked, how could she die of lung cancer? Because of those emotions, because of those questions of faith, I truly felt as though that began a race to the bottom for me. And because I do have faith, because my son was born, because I had a lot of life to live afterwards, I was okay. And I still maintain to be okay. But what you realize in that moment, and we'll talk about some of the odds of, playing in the NFL and triple major from Notre Dame, all of these things, none of them mattered in that moment because my bottom, my spiral had occurred because I had lost my hero. Today's episode is meaningful on this day because if I do cry today, it won't be out of sadness. It'll be because I'm celebrating an amazing, amazing woman who gave a lot to a lot of people, but gave so much to me. A lot of people because she was an educator, a lot of people because of what she did with our family, not just my brother and sisters, but also the school system, right? Or family beyond, people that she treated like family. She treated everyone in the schools like family, our extended family. She was the one who did the family reunions. So she was an amazing woman who gave a lot to a lot of people. And so on this day, August 28th, 2026, now 14 years removed, for those who have lost a parent, lost a loved one, but especially a mom, there is no real healing from it. You learn to live with it. You need to mourn and cry when you need to cry. I start this show vulnerable because I want to make sure that I allow people to see that it's a part of it. And so for those who have had their own experience of their race to the bottom, losing a loved one, this show is for you. We are going to get into sports business entertainment because we have to, because that's what the people want. But I wanted to at least give the time and the space in this moment on this day to say, rest in peace, Betty Brown. I love you. Thank you for everything you did for me and for everyone that you have blessed and you continue to bless because of the lessons that you left us with. Normally I'd have Big Flo here, and I think it is appropriate today to at least at the outset feel as though I was alone and deal with the reality of those emotions. But truth be told, I'm not alone today. You know how I am, man. Sometimes I gotta go in the back pocket. I keep a draw four. I keep a joker. I keep a friend that I can always count on. And so today's show, while Big Flo is doing his thing, his fatherly duties, being a great sports dad, I decided to bring somebody into the building today. And while this episode is going to capture the race to the bottom, and I started off talking about how lonely that feeling is when you lose your hero, when you lose your mom. Thankfully and prayerfully today, I do not have to be alone. I've got my man in the building, none other than Walt D is in the building, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and rats, dogs and frogs. If you don't know, now you know. The man, the myth, the legend, thou who shall be intergalactically known as. I know, Big Flo, I'm like, wait a minute, you gave somebody else the intro. But he is none other than Walt D. What up, my man? How you walk, D?
B Brown, I'm wonderful, baby. I'm wonderful. It's so funny, man. I forgot your mom's first name was Betty. So she was the original B Brown. Now
She was
wonder. Now I get
original,
it.
original.
Now I get it.
The Don Dada B
And
Brown, baby.
and trust me, my brother, you're never alone. Never alone. And whether
Thank
we
you,
are
man.
there physically, in physical form, as they say, in spiritual form, in the
Yeah.
virtual reality, my brother, you are never alone. But let me tell you, what you shared this morning is so important because whether we're talking about sports, whether we talk about business, whether we talk about entertainment, we are all still human. And it's our
Amen,
human
brother.
stories that make up all of this. So thank you for being vulnerable, for sharing. And we got you, my brother.
Yes, indeed, man. I want to start at the outset because you've been on the show and you've done a phenomenal job as a guest. And
Thank you,
so
my
I,
brother.
I, I brought you back as a guest host today because the Big Flow show is not available. But I also wanted you to make sure that you at the beginning, we're gonna come back to it. I wanted to make sure that I allow people to get a inside glimpse into what you got going on and what's coming up. I know you've got a podcast. I see the logo in the back, and I love it. I love it. Want you just, if you could, just tell the people, no roadmaps, and that's KNOW roadmaps. And I know a little bit about it, but give the people an intro before we get into today's show.
Oh, absolutely, Bobby. And thank you for this opportunity. No roadmaps is exactly what it says. No roadmaps. You know where you're going or you don't know where you're going. But the ideal is to have real conversations about it with no blueprint, straight no chasers, they like to say. But
Yes,
the
sir.
whole thought, Bobby, is how do we share with one another our journeys so that should I come across that bridge that you crossed before me, it won't be so difficult for this fair haired child. And you
Right.
know what I mean about that bridge builder poem.
Yes, I do,
But
sir.
no roadmaps truly is talking to entrepreneurs, talking to executives, talking about what happened when the road you were traveling wasn't as clear as you thought it would be, or
Yeah.
where an obstacle presented itself and you then had to pivot, or where you didn't know where you were going and you needed that compass. And that's why you see that compass right where the O is, because we want to help people find their direction. That's no roadmaps. And thank you.
I love it, man. We will be tuned in. We will be supporting. I will be on the show at some point. We can't give everybody the dates and the substance of that. We're gonna keep them at least in a little suspense. But
Absolutely.
I think that it's perfect timing because I started off the show and I gave people a glimpse into my journey. But there is literally no roadmap to dealing with that level of grief. There's no roadmap to know how to address when you feel as though you're spiraling. And so, in a way, there's going to be a lot of overlap here. But I love having you on, man. I love the fact that you're going out and getting it done and providing another resource for people to be helpful in
Yes.
figuring out this journey of life, man. You know how we do it. We do sports business entertainment. And so today I'm gonna hop right in because I think I talked about my race to the bottom emotionally, and then ironically this week the NFL, there's some stats that came out. Bear with me here. It talked about the NFL roster less than 0.2% chance when you were playing high school football to make it onto an NFL roster. And I was fortunate enough to do that and thought, man, I got it all figured out. And then August
Mhm.
28th, 2012 happens.
Mhm.
And there's also a new study that talks about 25% of a particular study, the brains that were studied. Scientists have said 25% of the nearly 900 NFL players that were studied, 25% of them showed degenerative brain disease, also known
Mhm.
as CTE. And while I thought I had it all figured out, I didn't realize that I was also exposing myself to potentially dealing with this reality. The lowest moment that I had felt prior to August 28th, 2012. And that's why I had to go get one of my fraternity brothers. I see my man Lionel in the building. He talked about the tribute was special when he gave me the RQQ, that's pronounced Rue. I had to bring in my fraternity brother, Walt D, into the building today. The time that I felt lowest prior to August 28th, 2012 is I catch a touchdown. I get in the end zone against Michigan. I got to do a PAT. I throw up the side. I get a penalty for excessive celebration. We ended up losing the game. Media decides, because media has to find somebody to blame, that they're going to blame a 21-year-old kid. And I was spiraling. You talk about a race to the bottom. To be blamed for a loss. But to be blamed for a loss in front of 110,000 people, millions watching, to be blamed for a loss at 21 years old, and to be blamed for a loss for doing something that connected me to so many amazing men and the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. But it was, I started this race to the bottom. The reason I call the entertainment company, because what New Jerseyans will know, maybe others don't, is that Walt D also, we used to throw these parties together when he was still living here before he moved to the ATL. We had these parties, baby. Walt D approved. We threw these excessive celebrations. The reason my entertainment company is named Excessive Celebration is because I took that moment where I was at my lowest and I decided to own it and flip it and make it my own. The day after, I'd received probably my 8th death threat letter from Notre Dame fans. That's before you could be a keyboard warrior or Twitter fingers.
A keyboard thug.
Keyboard thug and a Twitter finger. Before that, we didn't have social media, so you had to write the letter. So somebody took the time to get the paper, to write the letter, to find Notre Dame football address and mail me a death threat letter.
They paid for the stamp.
The stamp and everything. That's how you know they mad. But there was a man by the name of Dave Durson, who is in Omega chapter now. God rest his soul. But he sent me a hat with the letters Omega Psi Phi on the hat. And he wrote on the bill of the hat, "See it through, persevere." Now, Dave Durson, who was captain of the 1985 Bears team and leader of that defense, Dave Durson, who had an illustrious NFL career, took the time to write me, and it helped me overcome the race to the bottom. So when Dave Durson, fast forward, after his NFL career, after getting an MBA from Harvard Business School, after being on the board of trustees at University of Notre Dame, after owning a business that was selling all the sausage patties, I think, to Burger King at one point, and being the prominent figure of what we look at as post-career success, when that Dave Durson started acting erratically and did something in a hotel, got dismissed from the board of trustees, and decided to take his own life with the specific instructions that he wanted his brain studied, that is when CTE became personal for me. We're going to talk about mental health and the race to the bottom. But to know that 25% of players that were studied had brains that were experiencing this degenerative brain disease, that's scary to hear, but it's even more frightening to experience. Dave Durson, for me, made the whole CTE thing personal. And so I fast forward that and I give that background because I want people to know and qualify why I'm taking a certain stance. That's why Druski's skit. If you haven't seen it, just Google it. I can't, in just good faith, I can't show it here, but I have to admit it's kind of funny. But the reason it was funny because it was so true. Druski just came out with a new skit. and he's poking fun at CTE. It seems as though it is, all of the things that he do is satire, but it seems as though it's literally like a episode of Law and Order in a sense that they change the names, but it seems pretty real. It's a real story, whether it be Brandon
Hey,
Aiyuk.
Bobby, let me lean in on this. And
Go ahead.
I can't remember who said this, but someone said that comedy helps us deal with the tragedy of life. And I'm going to see if I can find the quote, but someone said comedy helps us deal with life's tragedies.
I like that.
And what I'll say to you, and you and I discussed this during our preparation for the show, is it would be funny if it wasn't so sad. But Druski truly held up a mirror to us and the things that are happening have happened. And hopefully we can have some candid conversations, God forbid, before there's another tragedy.
Yeah.
So I get it. I know we don't want to give too many clicks to a comedic impression of something that's so serious, but we do have to have the serious conversation.
Yeah, I guess the worst part about Druski's thing was the NFL's response. It was canned and talked about their ongoing attempt to address it. But I don't know any former player that has overcome those stats. Less than a 0.2% chance to go from high school to an active NFL roster. I don't know anyone that I still stay in touch with that doesn't know someone with CTE. Just gauged on their erratic behaviors. And, he showed the wild spending and a gold Ferrari and, doing things that you like, why is that person doing that? And so when you think of just how massive that reality is and how it impacts so many people, right, is someone's family had to deal with Dave Duerson taking his own life. His family had to deal with that. He had a son in Notre Dame, I think, at the time, right? So I hope the NFL does more. They talked about changing the rules. They talked about the equipment. But truth be told, I think Druski's skit, while funny, I found myself laughing. I sure found myself a little emotional, too. I found myself teary, laughing, then teary. It was a surreal depiction, and you're right. Now we have to have the conversation. I think we have to do more. I think the NFL has taken the lion's share of blame when it comes to – or attention when it comes to CTE. But if we really want to get into the nitty-gritty, soccer players, hockey players, boxers, anything that gives you constant impact, these players too have seen an amazing uptick in CTE and have dealt with the tragedies associated with said condition.
Hey, Bobby,
but the NFL was just a better target. It was just a more salacious target where you could get the clicks, and the storylines became great. And there's a mass exodus from tackle football. Now they're going to go play flag football. But we never really dealt with the elephant in the room, and it's not just football. I'll give you last word.
It definitely is not football. And one of our good fraternity brothers, Dr. Jeff Upperman, I remember when my kids were born and they had their big wheels on, and I had put up pictures about the kids on their big wheels. And big wheels, like barely 6 inches off the ground. And Jeff called me. He said, man, put some helmets on those kids. I was like, they're on big wheels. He says, man, you don't want your kids to have brain injuries. He says, you know how many big wheels turn over? And I thought it was a joke. And he says, no, man, I'm not joking with you. And so what I will say is we have to think about all of the things. And you're right. While the NFL may have been the easy target, the low-hanging fruit, when we think about traumatic head injuries, traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, CTE, and then the overlapping mental health aspects that come into play with those physiological issues as well, we have to start having these honest conversations. And again, did Druski go too far? Maybe he did, but better it be a Druski skit that gets us upset than to be the next, XYZ Smith who had a traumatic situation or
Junior
someone that got hurt.
You go down a list of people. Like,
Right. So we can be a little upset with Druski, but let's take this lesson before there is another tragedy that forces us to have this conversation.
I finally feel how my pastor and evangelist brothers feel, because boy, Druski stepped on their toes. Man, Druski was all over my toes, dog. Man, you know what I mean? Every time I forget something, I'm wondering like, oh, is this, because I had concussions in college, and they said if you get another one, you're done for the season. And because I wanted to be one of the kids that was less than the 0.2% to make it to NFL roster, that was my dream. What you do is you start hiding your concussions, which is even worse, right? So thankfully, as I talked about you being my fraternity brother and how we threw events, but he's also a very, very senior and seasoned man when it comes to the healthcare space. So to bring you on and talk about it is even better. But when you know better, you do better. And thankfully, the science has taught us that at a minimum, go through a protocol. It is the exposure to another traumatic brain injury when you've had a concussion that puts you at more risk to eventually lead to CTE. So to know better is to do better. I'm glad I had you on for that. Druski, all right, man. Well, do you make me feel better about laughing about it? Because, well, I'm like, I can't laugh at this. But he stepped on the pastor's toes. He stepped on my toes with that one, dog. I can't lie to you. But it was funny. So check out the skit. Druski does this CTE skit, and it's only funny because, boy, it surely is true. Some of the erratic behaviors.
What do they say? Facts.
Facts. While we talk about it from a football standpoint, Coach K got called out by Kyle Singler, who had a 9-year NBA career. He makes a series of videos, and it looks really, the look of it is disheveled. He's basically saying Coach K set him up. He's been trying to get Coach K to help him. It looks like he either is dealing with some sort of drug addiction or there might be a mental health concern there. None of us are exempt from the reality that the race to the bottom, when you're spiraling, is one that is made for TV. It's the car accident that no one wants to turn away from. And so here comes Kyle Singler posting these videos and calling out Coach K and saying, I thought it was the brotherhood. And it was a sad video, man, to see that here is this race to the bottom happening right in front of you. But it's also, to your point, the video, just like Druski's skit, is forcing us to have a conversation. Because we talked about the number and the improbability of making it to an NFL roster. I would be amazed if the number for NBA roster from high school basketball, because there's more people playing, there's fewer spots, and it's really difficult because you're competing against the whole world. It's got to be even less probable. Here's a guy that made it to the mountaintop, and we're watching him spiral, watching his race to the bottom. Do you think Coach K and the schools like Duke or the institutions like the NBA, do they have more of a responsibility? Because that's what Kyle Singler essentially is saying by calling out Coach K.
I'll be honest with you, Bobby. I don't know if they do have a responsibility. And I'm going to break it down to you this way. Let's take the average Joe or the average Jane who goes through life, get a high school diploma, go to basic college, get a degree, goes get a job, and things don't go well. And we'll use the word Acme like in the cartoons. Is the Acme Corporation responsible for saving that person's life, for rallying around that person?
No.
Is the college professor that taught that individual responsible for going back and helping them up? Or was our journey designed to help build resilience and give us the mettle and the tools to succeed? And I'm not suggesting that fraternity, community can't be there to help you. But I think to call someone out when you've had a greater benefit than over 90% of the population, come on, man. You gotta live the real life, baby.
Yeah.
As you said, he made it to the mountaintop. He was in the league. He probably made 7 figures. He wasn't living off of
he had 1 year where he was
$50,000 a year.
close. He made $5 million 1 year. He didn't have a supermax contract, but he had definitely more than most when it comes to contractual income.
So again, he made multiple times, exponential times more than the average salary for the working American. So why should we cry for him, Argentina?
Very fair. Very fair. Somebody take his phone. Here's where I will say, maybe it's not on Duke's watch and their responsibility to help him out. Maybe it's not on Coach K. But anybody that called themselves, now I'm on my soapbox. If you called yourself his agent or his representative or his brand manager or whomever, man, try to take that man's phone. You could tell he's disheveled. You could tell he's in some sort of mental challenging situation. Take his phone at a minimum because the things that you post never go away. And I just hate this for his family, right? Because now the family who you better believe everybody knows their family. Because when you're one of that less than, let's call it 0.01%, I don't even know what it would be for basketball. But when you're one of that, you're in that group, cousins and aunties and uncles, boy, they show a lot of bragging. Oh, that's my cousin. Oh, yeah, that's my nephew. Oh, you talking about Kyle? Yeah, that's my neighbor. Oh, Kyle Singler? Oh, yeah, man. He was a McDonald's All-American. He was the Oregon Player of the Year along with Kevin Love. Right? He was this, he was that. People brag about it. So everybody knows you're associated with this particular individual. And now comes the race to the bottom.
Yeah. Listen, Bobby, to your point about the numbers, because numbers don't lie. I went to my good friend Google and asked how many people from high school make it to the NBA. Mm-hmm. The numbers are so slim. Google, the great brain of the world, doesn't even have an estimate. They had to go to college and it said less than 1.2 of NCAA athletes make it to the NBA. They couldn't even come up with a number for high school kids.
Yeah,
so again, I'm not piling on to this young man, and I'm sure he's going through something because we all go through something, Listen, we're only facing what other men have met. And the question is, where are you going to stand up? And are you going to blame someone else for your downfall? Right? And at some point, even if Coach K was supposed to stand up for him, Jay Will, who I love watching his podcast, in the Duke community, at least on the outside looking in, seems to be very thick, very for each other.
Yeah.
At some point, when is he going to take ownership and accountability for his life? At one point, Bobby, the man had $5 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to have $5 million. If anybody wants to give it to me, you just hit me up in my DMs. I'll give you my address and send it to me. But yeah, it's sad. I hope whatever he is going through, he's able to find his bounce back. He's able to find his friend, find his community to help him come back from it. But it's really interesting. What up, T. Hayes? My brother, Tony Hayes, our fraternity brothers in the building. He says, don't forget about power slap competitions getting popular too. The NFL can lead the way. But when it comes to these, sports that lead you to traumatic brain injury, think about that. I got slapped, and I'm going to stand up there and get slapped again. We got to be careful because Kyle Singler is just the latest tale of what we see right in front of us, because he put the camera in front of him of how far that race to the bottom and how quick that slide can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's shout out our good friend Maya, my Cancerian sister. We just had our birthdays in July, but I appreciate her posting about Junior Seau's loss being so sad.
Yeah, it was.
And what I think for us as fans, as consumers of sport, in some ways we're guilty too.
Yeah,
Because going back to Brother Hayes' point, and then I'll come back to Maya, the power slap competitions wouldn't be popular if somebody wasn't paying to see them,
right.
right? And so
Right.
we as fans got to wonder what's really wrong with us to watch people open hand slap each other and pay to see that. What's
And
wrong
think,
with us
you know how
as a
many times,
society?
not only that, we think, you know how many times I want to open and slap somebody? We envious that we can't get on the show.
And then I think when we think about our heroes, because sports athletes often become our heroes, and we saw Junior Seau was such a dynamic and magnanimous figure. And then
Mm-hmm.
when he took his life, it made us as mere humans who couldn't do what he did go, man, well, if that happens to him, then what about us? So we got
Yeah.
to talk about these things. And you started the show talking about mental health, and we got to keep coming back to that and maybe change mental health to mental wellness and
Yeah.
really be honest with ourselves because regardless of what you say, I say, and again, we are men of a certain age, once you begin to become transparent about your mental status, I'll use that phrase, especially when you're younger in your career, in your 20s and 30s, and dare I say maybe even your 40s, people still judge you.
Yeah.
They may say they don't. They may applaud you in public and say, I'm glad you came forward. But people still have said, yeah, isn't that the person who had the addiction problem? Isn't that the person that fell down and, had to get up? Right. And I think that's part of the challenge because no matter how much we applaud people who are transparent and with their vulnerabilities, there's still too large of a segment of our society that penalizes vulnerabilities when we all have them.
Yeah. Yeah. I started the show with my own vulnerability because we all have to, more than likely, we are all going to deal with the death of our parents. If the timeline and the expectancy happens the way it normally does, you're going to deal with the death of the parents. But that's something we can all appreciate. What we don't appreciate is that transition.
Mm-hmm.
Going from being less than 1.2% of all college players, going from being one of the people that the probability is so rare that we can't even quantify by way of Google and being an NBA player to now being out of the league, there is a race to the bottom that happens, whether it be NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB. A lot of players spiral because your identity has been wrapped up in this sport, because you've been put on a pedestal, you've been treated a certain way. And we're going to talk about later in the show some of these younger players now because the brands are investing even younger. And so I
Yes.
think that the problem is going to get bigger, not smaller. And so we have to address the mental wellness. I like putting it that way. And I think this, for us, the Ball Hog Sports Talk, we like to start the conversation, but we also like to do the work. And so we've enlisted ourselves to do the work. I will say this because my girl Maya always knows how to make me feel a little better about the situations. Maya in the live audience says she never played football, but she suffers from premenopausal, so she forgets everything. And I only smile because, look, I got three sisters, and I can see what they go through, or I've seen what they've gone through when it comes to pre and menopause, all those different changes. But I can't really appreciate it because I'm a man. And so I think the truth be told is I can sympathize, I can support, but I can't truly understand. And so the Kyle Singlers of the world, the Junior Seaus of the world, the Dave Dewersons of the world, if you've never dealt with the symptoms of CTE and erratic behavior and having no control over your faculties because of the degenerative brain condition, then you can never really understand. So let's sympathize and let's try to work with that race to the bottom that is a part of the transition from pro sports. My man P in the building. Sorry you couldn't be here as well, P, who does all our research, man. He commented. Sorry you can't make it today, but I'll tell you what, Walt D has stepped up, man, and he's doing his thing, gonna continue to do his thing. It's a great time to pivot. A great time to ask everyone humbly, please like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anyone that you know, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the podcast. Your comments, I'll do as good a job as I can without P in the building, without Big Flow Show. I'm doing the comments and doing the commentary. So if I miss your comment, blame it on my head in terms of my thoughts, not my heart and my love for you. But please keep the comments coming. It won't cost you anything to like this, to comment on it, to share it, to tag someone. It doesn't cost anything. You'd be doing us a world of favor as you share this episode of the Ball Hog Sports Talk, which is going by the title of Race to the Bottom. Now, man, I gotta get to another topic. And I didn't warn you. Sometimes I do pop quizzes. This is a pop quiz. You don't know that this is coming.
Oh, let me get my pen and paper ready.
Yeah, you go, baby. Pen and paper ready. Pen and paper ready, man. Because I gotta throw something at you today, Walt D.
Okay.
You didn't know it was coming, but I gotta throw it at you because you are an amazing father. Amazing father, but you're the father of both an amazing young king and an amazing young queen. And Enes Kanter and Royce White have been taking on the WNBA's inability to really define what it means to be eligible for the WNBA and whether or not transgender women can play in the WNBA. Enes Kanter Freedom went even further this week because he and Natasha Cloud had an exchange and he was walked up out of a WNBA arena. And so while Enes Kanter and Royce White have implemented themselves in this conversation, I'm going to ask you from a different standpoint as an amazing father to a beautiful little girl who happens to also be an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You have this issue looming over our head. Big Flo talked about it from his standpoint as a girl dad, a girl sports dad. What say you? Your daughter is a phenomenal gymnast. What if she had to compete against someone who was born biologically a male, but identifies now as a trans woman or young girl in this current state, because she's not a woman yet, but has to compete against someone that is biological? And I know it's hypothetical, but what Enes Kanter has done, just like Druski has done, forcing us to have a conversation about CTE, what Enes Kanter and Royce White, while you might not like the strategies that they have deployed in forcing this conversation, they've indeed forced this conversation. As a girl dad, what do you think about the broad topic of trans women competing in women's sports?
Bobby, first and foremost, I am a father. I'm a proud girl dad. And, you know, I will do anything to protect my princess, to advocate for her. I'll spend my last red cent to support her aspirations. That being said, it troubles me, and I'm old enough to live through the origins of Title 19. I think I'm saying that right.
Title 9. You had
Title 9.
right.
I'm sorry. Title 9.
Yep.
That was meant to level the playing field for women and girls in sports. We can't allow the progress that's been made for girls and women's sports to be derailed because there is a new issue that needs to be addressed. I don't think sports for women and girls should be compromised because the playing field is unfair for transgender individuals. I think we need to have the honest conversation about how do we create an appropriate space for those who identify as transgender.
I like that.
I think what's happened, and again, I don't know what Enes Kanter's plan was. He is forcing a conversation, but I do feel that when you have someone who is being interviewed to be a Supreme Court justice, and they asked Justice Ketanji Brown what's a woman, and she could not answer the question. I think that further opened up Pandora's box on this very touchy, highly sensitive political debate about transgender individuals. But now that I've said all those things, I'll go back. No, I do not want transgender individuals competing with my daughter. I don't want transgender individuals competing with my son. I do want there to be a conversation to create an opportunity for transgender individuals to have a playing field that's level for them. We create a level playing field for women. Let's create a level playing field for transgenders. But this goes back also to a business conversation. But I'm gonna let you respond to my comments first.
No, I would look, as someone who wanted a daughter and never had one. I've got nieces that I treat like daughters, but I find myself uniquely unqualified to speak on it. So when Big Flo Show talked about his daughter, who is a volleyball player, and how, look, you anybody identifying as a woman, you deserve the right to do that. But when you start encroaching on the fairness of the game, and he was very protective when it came to his daughter, and it made sense to me. And as you said, it makes sense to me as well. I think that, I'll let you, because you're going to make a point about business. I'll let you say that before I get to Enes Kanter and Royce White, because there's also a question of, have they gone too far? I talked about, Druski and his CTE skit. I mean, Enes Kanter is wearing a shirt that reads, what was the shirt? It said woman. Let's see if I wrote it down. Woman, noun. Where did I put it? Yeah, woman, noun, adult, human, female. And the fact that he got that shirt made, I'm assuming, it just shows how far we have gone off the beaten path when it comes to having a conversation. This conversation in political spaces was whether or not trans people should be able to use women's bathrooms. And it was talking about trans students in schools, and you could imagine just how outspoken parents were. It's like, hell, you create a different bathroom or something. And now it's in sport. And the suggestion is maybe you create a different category and all that. So I'll let you make your point about the business of all of this. And then I'll come back to you and ask you about Enes Kanter and Royce White and whether or not they have, where they sit in the history of this conversation. But go ahead.
Yeah. My statement is real simple. I don't think people would be moving in these spaces if there wasn't money involved. I think this is a direct reflection of people seeing a money grab opportunity, an opportunity for a competitive advantage. But in my opinion, it's about a money grab. Wow. It really is.
You think that this being a topic is going to draw, because there is the LGBTQA plus community that is, they've come out in droves in opposition of Enes Kanter and Royce White. And that's why Natasha Cloud taking him on, she was the quarterback of a movement in that moment.
Yeah.
But you're saying that there's some capitalism as a part of this.
I sincerely believe it is. I think that when you consider what can be gained, especially now, even in amateur athletics, to be a winner, right? If you can win, and even in amateur athletics, when we think about NIL, there's money to be gained.
Right.
If you can't get an NBA check, but you reclassify, I'll use that in air quotes, as a woman, and now since the WNBA checks are much, much better, there's money to be made. And I think that's really what's driving a lot of this is capitalism and people saying, hey, How can I get that money?
Right. Very fair. The Ball Hog Sports Talk is where sports, business, and what? Entertainment collide. And we talked about it from a consumption standpoint when it comes to football, the Neanderthal sports of open hand slapping. If there's nobody there to consume it,
right,
it ain't gonna make it on the TV because you can't sell ads, you can't get the TV deals, and the same thing is true when it comes to this. There's an entertainment component to this conversation that I think people exploit, and that's unfair, to be honest, because I'm asking you as a sports dad, hell, the entertainment, like my daughter has to go compete against someone that was biologically born a male. That's just not right. Or in school has to go to a bathroom, like, and so we're having personal conversations while there is some, I think, profitability attached to it that undermines whether or not we can have a real conversation. I will give you that. Do you think Enes Kanter, short answer, do you think Enes Kanter and Royce White, who now have become the face of this conversation, NBA players deciding that they want to identify now as a woman? I mean, Enes Kanter has gone so far to make demands to the WNBA commissioner, saying, explain why I got kicked out. What are the guidelines? Royce White has threatened to sue the WNBA if they don't allow him to enter into the WNBA draft without any more steps taken to define what it is to be a woman to qualify for the WNBA. Are we getting to the bottom? There's a race to the bottom in terms of this conversation, whether or not there's really any authenticity to it. And I got to say, Royce White and Enes Kanter Freedom, they might be, president and vice president of why the wheels have come off. I understood what they were doing at first, but I just like I'm asking about Druski, have Royce White and Enes Kanter Freedom officially gone too far?
My answer is yes. And in this race to the bottom, if we're not at the bottom, I hope we get there quickly. Because if we've not gotten to the bottom, then I'm very, very much concerned about all the gains that have been made for women in the sports space. I'm concerned about all the gains that have been made for women in the workplace.
Right.
I'm concerned about all the gains that have been made for women to level the playing field in the political and social sector. And so we can't let people start chipping away at all the work that was done to level the playing field for our women, for our daughters, for our sisters, for our mothers.
Very fair.
That's it.
Very, 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 very fair. And I'll double down and I'll put it this way. We are reaching the bottom when NBA players are exploiting a situation. We are reaching the bottom when you have men going to WNBA games and throwing green dildos down on the floor.
So here's my thing too. And I think you've heard me speak very eloquently and poignantly about being an advocate for women and girls. But where is the absolute vocal, hell no, we're not going to take it anymore sounds from women? And maybe my algorithms on social media ain't right. Maybe I don't watch enough news, but I feel like women should be screaming to the top of their lungs. Women as let's go back to business for a second. Women as a retail consuming population contributes a lot to this country's economy. Why are we allowing them to be treated with such a level of disrespect?
Fair.
And where's their voice?
Fair.
And who's controlling the channels so that maybe we're not hearing their voices?
Very fair. Great. I know you're asking it rhetorically, but I think that's a powerful question. And I'll say this, in the same year that the viewership is up significantly, the product on the floor is amazing.
Yes.
The parity in the league is amazing. You
Yes.
got a rookie in Olivia Miles that could potentially win the MVP.
Ballin'.
And she's from Jersey. You know.
Ballin'.
And here we are talking about two non-WNBA players at the epicenter of every story related to the WNBA.
And sex toys being thrown on the floor.
And dildos being thrown on the floor. We've gotta go recapture the narrative and do so in a responsible way. And on this show and this platform, the Ball Hawk Sports Talk, we've talked about the WNBA ad nauseum because I love the product and so does Big Flo. And our audience seems to love the product. The game has gotten significantly better. And so while I took a chuckle, just like the Druski skit, I took a chuckle at first when Enes Kanter and Royce White came up with these different ways to explain how they are identifying as a woman. I did, but now I've grown weary of it.
Yes.
Cut the shit and let's get back to basketball. That's where I'm at with it now. Cut the shit. And he was banned from the arena. Which arena was he banned from? Wintrust Arena. And he being Enes Kanter Freedom. And I think we as a community of sports enthusiasts, as real men, as sports dads, especially to beautiful young queens, it's time for us to ban him from our conversation and make him irrelevant. Because both of them. Because right at this point, you've done enough. You made your point. Sit your ass down and let these women get back to basketball.
Hold up. Let's talk a little business strategy for a second. Because I think if we talk to communication professionals, if we talk to business leaders, if we talk to individuals that do crisis communication, there's often two schools of thought. It's what's your response so you can control the narrative, and sometimes it's don't respond so the story can go away. And so I think you make a really good point. Again, if we're going to talk about the business of this situation, is there something, and I'm going to ask you as an attorney, that maybe the WNBA should have done sooner? Or even when you talked about the canned response that the NFL had to the CTE. And maybe what you got to do one day, Bob, is we got to get one of our good friends who works in mass communications, who does crisis communications, to figure out what should the responses be or lack thereof in these situations. And I apologize, the sun is coming up, so I'm getting a shadow.
You good?
You know,
we'll figure it out.
I'm trying to make it work for our guests.
That's how they know it's
my
live,
beautiful
baby.
face and hear my voice.
Hey, that's how they know it's live, baby. Imperfection is when it's live. To answer your question, could the WNBA or should the WNBA have done something? I'd say yes. I think Kathy Engelbert has done a great job capturing the momentum of the WNBA, but also she sort of fumbled the bag, if you will, in a few instances. The relationship she's had with her players through the collective bargaining agreement and that whole saga in the offseason. And then I think also what Enes Kanter Freedom and Royce White were doing is they were trying to force a conversation about what the real definition of being eligible to play was. And I think Kathy Engelbert should have just addressed the elephant in the room and came up with, this is my legal hat, came up with a real guideline as to what that means, because there is no definition as to what that means. And so this conversation is still looming because we still don't have a definition of what that means. And that's what I would say. Leadership requires some really tough decisions and tough moments, and then that defines who you are as a leader. And so far, I think Kathy Engelbert, while the WNBA and its players are doing a phenomenal job producing quality basketball on a night in and night out basis, I think Kathy Engelbert has struggled from a leadership standpoint, and that would be my answer. I think she should have done more to lead the charge versus react to the clowns.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did want to get to what I would call ground zero. This is ground zero right now of the race to the bottom. And this race to the bottom is the intersection between amateur and pro sports. Ground zero is LSU. Lane Kiffin has stretched the definition of what it means to be eligible to play college football. He was the face of having these players that were NFL players, that were on NFL rosters but did not make the final cut, bringing them back to college. And now, I say the law and order because the latest is you've got a Texas judge saying that the SEC cannot prevent these players from being eligible. You got the Big Ten, SEC, the Big 12. Notre Dame came out talking about individually how they are going to address NFL players wanting to come back to play college football. What we haven't had, similar to Kathy Englebert's fumbling the bag in terms of leadership, what we have not had is the NCAA do its part and lead. And so here we are. You got Lane Kiffin in the football saga there. You've got their basketball coach, Will Wade, basically allowing R.J. Lewis, who was the Big East Player of the Year but signed an NBA deal, coming back to play for LSU. And then I'll get to Kim Mulkey after we talk about just this law and order of college sports. You've got players, because they were in that class of 22, that kind of got left out. They didn't get the extra year of COVID, and now they got left out because they were born 1 year too early to get the luxury of 5 and 5, which is the new law that's passed by the powers that be. That class is the one that's impacted by it. That class has at least 41 players in a lawsuit. That class is now, because of the ruling, the one that these conferences have had to decide, we are not going to let you come back after you've played professionally. We are in a free-for-all. And once the lawyers get involved, I can talk about us because I'm amongst the company.
I'm glad you did because I was going to say it.
That's the race to the bottom. Once the lawyers are lining up to get involved, the whole phrase race to the bottom has to do with law. Once lawyers get involved in sport, we have officially gotten dangerously close. If we ain't at the bottom, it's a photo finish. That's where we are now. So I ask you what you think. I ask our audience what they think, because to think that somebody can go play in an NFL preseason game and because it didn't work out, go back and play in college, same way with NBA. I talked about it last week. We've reached a new level of bizarre, a new level of ambiguity and uncertainty, and LSU seems to be ground zero of where it's happening. What say you, sir?
Bobby, I got so many comments, but let me say this first. I used to be an LSU fan because I felt that they were one of the most entertaining programs, regardless of the sport. Football, men's basketball, women's basketball. I just always thought they've had great teams, and they also have had very entertaining coaches that keep you engaged. But that being said, I think they're going over the top with this. And I actually heard something the other day that I thought was quite interesting. LSU is a state school, which means they are the leaders, the leadership there are hired or approved by the governor. So it makes you wonder what's happening in Louisiana. Hard stop there. Here's the other thing. The NCAA needs to be blown up.
Okay.
The NCAA,
Tell me more. Oh, I'm sitting up in my seat.
As what was one time defined as the governing body of amateur sports has really just lost control, spiraled out of control, and they definitely have spiraled to the bottom. And if they could go lower than they are now, then my God, what's the future of amateur sports? And now let's talk business. Because see, I like talking business with you, Bobby, because if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. We know that there's always been money in amateur athletics.
Right.
And you and I, both as sports dads, see the money in youth sports. There's billions of dollars there. What's happening now is a perversion of what sports is in this country. And what I think about often is, what's the sports model in Europe? Do they truly have amateur athletes? Right? Because if you think about the guys in the NBA, or even the men and women that play professional soccer, they were playing on those club teams as preteens and teens.
Oh yeah. They've got professional academies that they send their elite athletes to. Absolutely.
And so are we as a nation, as a sports nation, just slow on the draw? Or are there gatekeepers trying to manage the money? I think the NIL was an attempt to level the playing field, no pun intended, but I think all it did was further confuse it. And I'll tell you this thing, and I haven't pulled apart all the legislation in the 5 for 5, but what if I go to the Army and come out of the Army at age 22, at age 24? Do I still get 5 years? Because when I hear some of the arguments, well, now you got 24-year-olds playing against 19-year-olds. Well, it's my understanding that you can have age discrimination in higher education.
Fair.
So if I go from high school to the service, armed forces, serve my country, and then go to college afterwards, am I now not eligible to play sports because I didn't do it at age 19?
There's a 47-year-old that just made some small college team. You talked about the service, but also, what if I go and do a mission? There's the Mormon community that they've got to go do a mission. So they're going to be older. Yeah, there's several examples of players not starting their clock until a certain time when when their lifestyle allows them to do it. So, but we've never had this though, Walt D, where you're a year away, or in this case, just a few months away from campus, was to go pursue your dream to play professional. This is the new frontier.
Yes. So here's the thing, Bobby. We talked about federalism off camera earlier.
Yes.
And my question, where does the buck stop? Does the federal government have to judge this? Do states have to govern this? Does the NCAA or some new or renewed body have to judge this? But at some point, there's going to be an implosion. And here's the thing that really troubles me. I worry about your children. I worry about my children who are at that early teenage year, that if something doesn't change in the next 2 or 3 years, their whole college experience, opportunities for college, is going to be altered. And good, bad, or different. I'm not saying what worked for me in '86 was the best model. And you're a few years younger than me. I'm not saying that was the best model, but hell, as 18 and 19-year-olds, at least we had an opportunity to compete. How can I compete with somebody who's 22?
And that's the people that have been the biggest detractors over the last several days have said that the domino effect of, with name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal combined, there's already been a downward pressure on high school athletes enjoying what was for us the normal recruiting process and having the opportunity. But now if you take this unique group of would-be pros and put them back into the pond, there's going to be even more downward pressure on high school recruiting. So I understand both sides. I again, just like I said about Kathy Engelbert, leadership matters. And the NCAA has punted several times. They punted on whether name, image, and likeness should exist at all. They punted even before that on whether or not student athletes should compete during the pandemic, COVID.
Right.
And whether or not, when the Big Ten and the conferences made their own independent decisions as to whether or not they would play and whether or not they could or would require things like vaccination, the NCAA was giving us a glimpse into the playbook that they just wanted to punt. They didn't want to lead. They've done it again when it comes to this topic. And I think the NCAA has rendered itself obsolete and meaningless. And your mention of federalism, and I don't want to conflate these two things, but federalism really got its first opportunity to be on the grand stage in slavery. What is the federal government going to do versus the states? It got another example of it more recently when it comes to legalization of cannabis. That's why you can't pay with a credit card. I wouldn't know. I've never been in a dispensary. But you can't pay with a credit card. Why? Because there is this issue of federalism. And now federalism meaning who trumps from a precedent standpoint, or who has the authority. Is it the federal government or the states? Whenever there's a confusion between those, that's an issue of federalism. And now we're having it with the NCAA. While the SEC and the Big Ten, the Big 12, Notre Dame, they come out with their guidelines on how they're going to address it. The penalties for Lane Kiffin if he decides to ignore their rules. Truth be told, the SEC is putting LSU and all of these schools at risk of being sued, because there is law in place now based on a recent lawsuit that says they can play. All of this confusion happens. All of this uncertainty happens. Ambiguity, chaos, because you don't have leadership.
And you know what, Bobby? And I'm going to say this with all the love in my heart. And you know who's going to get paid throughout all of this?
The coaches.
Lawyers.
Oh, the lawyers.
The lawyers are going to get paid throughout all of this.
Oh, yeah, handsomely, beautifully. They're going to get paid beautifully. There's going to be a lot of lawyers that are sending some nice legal bills for this one. We'll see how it all plays out. I'll leave LSU alone with this one, because while I didn't think it could get any worse, Kim Mulkey, in her infinite wisdom, in her bright suits, amazing fashion decisions, perky little personality, and her southern drawl, and her infinite wisdom, Kim Mulkey decided, while having a player on her team, a young lady who I really like because she played at Notre Dame, a young lady who transferred there and was, I think, doing phenomenally. Look at her numbers. She was playing very well. But someone with morals and conviction decided to take on Kim Mulkey. I can't get the Cabot. I can't think of her name. But I'm sorry, I can't think of her name. But Kim Mulkey decided to add a player who, there it is. I found it. Kate Koval. There it is. Kate Koval, who is from Ukraine. Kim Mulkey decides to add a player from Russia. And Kim Mulkey made light of it and said, hey, maybe they can end the war. This is a conflict, a war that has gone on since February of 2022. This is a conflict where 2 million people have lost their lives. This is a conflict that, because it exists, this student athlete who was experiencing significant success on the court, Kate Koval, from Ukraine, decided, I'm going to transfer. Mm-hmm. And for that, because we're in a place now where nobody has really any conviction, any morals, any soul. But this young lady deciding to leave LSU, leave the success that she had on the court, leave what is probably a certain WNBA opportunity, and go find another opportunity says that our race to the bottom might not be so fast. And for that, her willingness to transfer, she gets this. At some point, as men of Omega Psi Phi, who we live by cardinal principles, the fact that this young lady had the principles enough to say, hey, Kim, I don't find that funny, and to transfer, bravo to her parents for raising a woman with principles.
I'll tell you, so I had to really listen to you to the end because I wanted to make sure that you acknowledge this woman's moral integrity and her character.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm going to flip this for a second. Allow me to play devil's advocate, and please, please, you can hit me on NJ Walty on Instagram if you got some comments.
Right.
But here's my thought. Wouldn't it have been a wonderful thing if Kim Mulkey would have sat down with her current player and said, hey, I think we might have an opportunity to change the world and show the world how we can unify on a basketball court and show the world how we can maybe unify a region of the globe. As opposed to being business-minded, short-sighted, and bringing in someone who was a clear opposition to this woman's way of life and things that's happened to her family and community. Wouldn't it have been true leadership if Kim Mulkey could have said, hey, we're going to take these two dynamic athletes and show how sports could unite or at least model what unification of a region could look like, as opposed to the way she did it, which I thought was disingenuous.
Very
I'm just playing devil's advocate, just food for thought.
I love that question. And look, I think Kim Mulkey could have done that. The way she chose to do it and bragged about not getting, I want to make sure I get her name right, Kate Koval's input before she offered the Russian young lady a scholarship, and saying, basically, talk about business. And we should talk about that, right? Because there's a core tenet in business that Kim Mulkey left out. Because she bragged about, hey, I'm in the business of recruiting. I'm trying to build the best roster here. I can't worry about outside situations like a conflict across the pond. I've got to build rosters here. But what she missed was an opportunity to build a conversation around changing the world.
Yes.
Leading to world peace. How sports can be a catalyst to said change. Instead, she made it about business. And I think she dropped the ball on that as well, because she could have actually made a real statement by at least talking to this young lady first and having a real conversation with her first. And admitting to that publicly that she needed her, maybe not her approval, but at least her understanding.
And again, the woman still may have transferred, but at least you would have shown respect for her and for the communities that are suffering through this conflict. Because there are
2 million people dead, man.
Sides.
2 million people dead. And there's while we won't get into that now, there's a whole business case about war too. So I'm not saying that the conflict doesn't have some things that we can challenge about the conflict, but Kim Mulkey, somebody trusted you enough to transfer from, of all places, Notre Dame. That girl left Notre Dame to come to LSU. She doesn't get to see her family regularly in Ukraine. She's there entrusting her career, her future, her opportunities. She's trusting them with you. And for your response to be, I can't worry about world conflicts. No, I can't get an approval of a player before. Shows that you out of touch, Kim. And if I had a daughter that was a basketball player, I would ask her humbly not to ever consider LSU while you're the coach. That's what that said to me. But it's another example of really poor, underwhelming leadership. That's the race to the bottom, whether it be politically, whether it be in sport, NCAA, whether it's this example, leadership or the lack thereof is the beginning of the race to the bottom. The reason I was able to overcome that 24-hour window of seeing the most amazing thing, my youngest son being born, or a child being born being the most amazing thing, to the most depressing thing, my mom taking her last breath while I was in that room. She decided to wait to that moment when I was in the room to die. The reason I was able to overcome that and not be in a race to the bottom, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, is because of a thing called leadership. That same woman, Betty Brown, was a pillar of leadership. So I had a core. I had a faith. I had something to hang on to because of leadership.
Yes.
And so that's what's happening with all of this. There's a race to the bottom because people are afraid to lead.
Hey, Bobby, listen, you have blessed me with this opportunity to co-host with you, but can we pivot for a second?
Go ahead.
Because you made me think about something when you talked about leadership, when we talked about Kim Mulkey, and that is once upon a time when young people were being recruited to go to these colleges and universities, it was about trusting our children with these coaches. Right? Now it seems like there is more of a conversation about, are the coaches winning so they can get their money, and are the kids getting the NIL money? And I know that you and I have talked about this, and I don't know if we're going to get to it today, but is it really just about the bag, or is it about the character of the person? Is it really about the bag when we think about the young man who called out Coach K, or is it teaching someone how to survive in this world? Is it about the business, or is it about the people?
That's hard, man.
Do I want the ring, or do I want the money?
That's the thing. Look, all of it. I put that out there when it came to James Harden. James Harden's like, everybody wants me to play a role. Every time I played a role, it didn't work in my favor. When I went and chased the bag and did my own thing, it worked in my favor. He has said almost publicly, and this is not verbatim, but you could infer, to hell with your conversations about legacy. I got paid. I'm over $500 billion in NBA contractual income. So if I don't get your approval in the barbershop, that doesn't mean anything to me because I'm over $500 million, $500 million in NBA contractual income. And I think there has been a shift. In ways, I celebrated that players on the collegiate level, by way of name, image, and likeness, and revenue sharing, by way of the house settlement, I celebrated that they were going to get paid. Why? Because I was the one who was lied to and told that the value of my education, when you put it on a scales of justice, the value of my education was even with the sacrifices I had to make, the risk, including CTE that I had to take, the hours that I had to sacrifice, the education that I had to discount. And I had a triple major and a minor, but I could have done more and got better grades had I not had to sacrifice all those hours. I remember guys that were engineer majors that they said, hey, essentially like, no. You can't be an engineer major because they do labs during practice time. Mm-hmm. But I was lied to believe that the scales of justice between those two things were equal. So I celebrated that players were able to get paid. I celebrated that they had a little more leverage. If a coach had a personal vendetta against somebody, that they could leave through the transfer portal. And now that we've had a little bit of time to look at what's going on, I will say from a transfer portal standpoint, I feel sorry for these players that they won't have 30-year relationships. If my tire goes flat on the side of the road, I can call somebody I played with 30 years ago because we did not transfer, because we went through those 4 or 5 years. And so the money of it has taken off. And to answer your question, I'm sorry, a long answer to your short question.
No, go ahead.
The money has taken the center stage of what used to be a lot more pure. And I think we've got to create more balance. And the money's got to be a part of it, but it can't be the MVP of every conversation when it comes to college sports, because at that point, it's something else.
Yes. Yeah. No, 2 comments. And again, thank you for that reaction, because I think these are the important and crucial conversations that have to be had. But I want to use 2 cliches I think that are really important in this space. All magic comes with a price. All magic comes with a price. I stole that from a TV show I used to watch that I thought was entertaining once upon a time. But Rumpelstiltskin said, all magic comes with a price. And that just used to just sit with me. The other thing is something my dad says, and that's money gives you options, right? And I think for me, when I marry the two, I understand that money, and hey, listen, I'm a sports dad, you're a sports dad. We know what it is to travel with our kids, to pay for the leagues, to buy the gear, yada, 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 and hope at some point that we wind up on a team that has sponsorship,
right?
Which is another conversation, right? But trust me, if my dad couldn't afford to do the things that I do for my son, the way youth basketball is played today, I would have been on every team.
Traveling here, traveling there. $40 billion industry in this country now called youth sports.
Right, but I also get that for too many of our communities, sports is an opportunity to improve your economic status. It's an opportunity to improve your your family situation. It's an opportunity to uplift your community. But it does come at a cost.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I believe there are too many people, even if we go back to the NCAA, before there was NIL, too many people thought that cheating was the only way they could win. And so they perverted amateurism. They perverted youth sports by flooding it with money to gain a competitive advantage so that they could make more money off the backs of people who were chasing their dreams.
People argue that we're seeing another version of it now, Waldy. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
Private equity has now created sports as its own asset class, and they're investing in youth sports. And when you are charged with the mandate of your private equity mission, you ain't worried about sportsmanship.
No.
Like that, because your mandate doesn't have anything about sportsmanship in it. You got a bottom line to address. Yeah. And so this is quintessentially the race to the bottom, is that money has become such an integral part of everything we do in sport, including all the way down to youth sport, that the sport itself, the soft skills, the building the friendships, to learning how to overcome adversity, to getting your ass knocked down and getting back up, to getting benched and know how to overcome that, to being second string and trying to get the first string, to cheering for your teammate because he's your teammate, not being jealous that you didn't get the touchdown or the three-pointer or the home run. When I watched the Little League World Baseball Series, there's still some forms of purity left in it. But even that, it is being broadcast on ESPN, not because we want to celebrate sportsmanship. It's because ESPN has identified that there are people that will buy ad space and that this is a phenomenal way to get money through the door.
Yes.
And so this is the race to the bottom, is that we've got to come up with some sort of balance. And I know you asked me that question and I went on a tangent, because I am passionate about it. It's like you got to have balance. There's got to be balance. Money is a good thing. But if money is the only thing, money is a bad thing. Yeah. And that's just where we are, as it's becoming the only thing. Every parent, as not only a sports dad, but I'm a coach, right? I run into more parents that are mad at me that I am somehow holding back little Johnny from what is imminent NIL money. Oh, did I tell you little Johnny was only 11? Yet I'm dealing with a parent that is really having a heart-to-heart conversation with me and taking me to task because me benching little Johnny is going to stop him from getting to this school and getting the bag. Let me be the one. Newsflash, spoiler alert, none of these high schools really care about your statistical output in youth sports. They want to look at whether or not you pass the eye test, whether or not you can, if there's an admissions exam, whether or not you can survive from a scholastic standpoint, whether or not you're going to be additive to the community on campus. They don't give a damn how many catches you had in some random 11U game. They just don't care. But because money has become the central figure in how we perceive sports, the level of irrational thought that is going on is almost unbelievable.
So the question becomes, again, as sports dads, how do we convert the irrational thought to radical thought? How do we go from irrational to radical, right? How do we educate ourselves? So, for example, my son is 14, so he is now old enough and eligible for high school level NIL money.
Right.
My daughter is 12. She's already a semi-brand ambassador for a gymnastics company, right? It's not all about the money, but it's about the money. And the question is, how do we become radical thinkers? And so even for my kids, and then I want to give you your flowers as a father, not just a sports as a father, but for my kids, I look at what I spend for them to do basketball, what I spend for them to do gymnastics. And for anyone who's a gymnastics parent, you know that that is a hardcore investment, almost like paying a mortgage every month. And I'll do it again because of how it's helped her to develop as a young woman. She just happens to be really good, and I thank God for her physical blessings. But because of what happened to my daughter during COVID and being pulled out of school as a kindergarten, her not being, an extrovert, a bit of an introvert, her following her brother's shadow in soccer and track. When she got gymnastics, that was her own thing. Mm-hmm. She developed her own friend groups. She had her own mastery. She wasn't in her brother's shadow, and it really helped her develop as a person. And oh my God, it turned out that she's actually pretty damn good.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So now it becomes the discussion of, okay, she really loves this. She's doing good in school. It drives her in school because she knows that she can't do gymnastics if she doesn't do school. But it's helped her grow as a woman, as a young woman. But now I start thinking about, and she wants to go Division I, right? That's her dream, like a lot of amateur, youth. But now it's how do we manage that process? How do we become radical about it and not irrational? Which takes me back to you, and I'm going to give you a conversation that you and I had some years ago. And I think this is important for our listeners, especially those who are parents of college students and youth who are in sports. I remember I said to you, Bobby, you got multiple degrees. Your wife has multiple degrees. You make good money, and God continues to bless you. I was like, why do you have such an emphasis on sports?
Oh, yeah. We had that conversation in your backyard. I remember
that. And without hesitation, you said, my kids love football. They love basketball. He says, so if I can get them to understand, and I'm probably not going to say it as eloquently as you said it, but if I can get them to understand what it takes to make the sacrifice to be good in their sports, to do the extra work, then I can use that same example to say, this is the same thought process you use when you have to read a little bit longer, when you have to study more to get that work done, to be that disciplined. And I remember how you really married the value, and this is the whole point of this soapbox, how you married the value of sports in developing young people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're losing with all the money. The money's great. We want the money, but we can't get the money at the risk of putting people at unusual risk for CTEs. We can't get the money at the risk of people transferring 4 or 5 times and not having a degree that allows them to compete in the workforce, because less than 1.2% of people make it to these professional leagues.
Yeah.
We can't give them an unrealistic expectation of you made $30,000 or $300,000 before the age of 20, but now you don't have the ability to go get that in a regular job. And then we can talk about investing in assets and stuff like that. But what are we doing to prepare our children after sports so they're not calling out Coach K after the $5 million NBA contract is gone?
And that's my
I'm
fear.
sorry. I got on my soapbox. My bad.
No, I love it. I love it. And you're hitting home. First, I'll say thank you for remembering that conversation, because we did have, I remember it like yesterday, now that you mentioned it, but we've never mentioned it since then. So thank you for remembering that, bringing that to my attention. And that's my challenge with where we are now, is I think the money is a good thing, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And there's different ways from an administrative standpoint you could take the focus off the money, how you pay it and situations like that. But the institutions don't want any liability related to it. That's a whole different show. How do we, as the people around it, try to have a positive impact on it? Is just constantly point out that A, the money is short-lived, and this is not enough money to live the rest of your life on. And B, if there's somebody that is resourced enough to pay you that money, along with in the NFL, 52 other people, in college football, whatever their budget is and how many people they're paying, why not aspire to be the person paying the 53? Because that's where the real power and independence is. And you never become the person paying the 53 men on that roster without doing all these other things. Meeting the right people.
Say those words one more time, Bobby. Power and independence.
Power and independence,
power
baby.
And independence.
Yeah, power and independence. No, those are the things that we've gotta I think infuse in this new wild west called college athletics and even youth sports. I have brands investing younger. They got this kid B5 down in Tampa who made his mark in 7-on-7 in flag football. And he's now the #1 receiver in all of high school football, and he's only a rising junior. He's a late birthday kid that just turned 16 and going to be a junior. And he's got his own cleats for the Battle brand. You got Nike, they put out a presser, how they've got this Nike Scholastic League, and it was East St. Louis. They send, a whole bunch of merch and swag down in a Rolls Royce. Rolls Royce has East St. Louis's logo on it. And they got bags of merch, and they got a chain, and literally programming these kids to think that is the thing that is most important in sport. You got kids jumping from circuit to circuit, from team to team, because of the swag being better. And what happens is, if you aren't also equipped with something substantive, the race to the bottom, when the door closes, when the music stops, and Nike and Battle aren't lined up to cater to you, there is a psychological slide that people take. That I think we're setting up these young people that's going to be even worse of a slide because they've never known anything else. I was broke. I lived off ramen noodles and Tom and Jerry walking everywhere at Notre Dame. I was broke before I made it to the NFL. So my transition just took me back to, okay, I just got to go back to 21. Once I was out the league, I knew how to be broke. I knew how to make ramen noodles stretch for a while as I went to law school. A kid that's 16 and has his own signature cleat already, just turned 16. I don't know if they're going to be equipped with life skills and how to avoid or deal with the struggle. I'm going to spin it. You get last word, man, before we get on out of here with this next topic. Because I got to talk about Joy Taylor and this maintenance of women per month. I got to talk about that before we get out of here.
Okay. But wait. So there's two things. And I know you said I get the last word, but we got to talk about your Cleveland Browns for a second. We got to spend at least 90 seconds on them.
Man. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Was that a business decision or a sports decision?
That was a $200 million mistake that basically led them to another mistake. And now Deshaun Watson is going to be the starter of the Cleveland Browns. A lady who's been writing there forever. I can't think of her name. Jammer. I can't think of her name. She's been the beat writer for the Browns forever. Talked about how it didn't matter that it was Deshaun Watson that was down there. People love Shador so much that whether it was Dylan Gabriel or Deshaun Watson, they're going to boo whoever is not Shador Sanders. Yet we decided in our infinite wisdom to make Deshaun Watson the starter because he has taken – he's extracted a lot of money out of the Cleveland Browns. I understand it, even if I don't like it. I don't like it.
I had to give you that opportunity to get that off your chest.
As a Steelers fan, that's a low blow, dog. You have to
listen. I am a faithful Steelers fan, and Sundays will be a day of prayer. All day long. Not just. It'll be prayer and concentration. I'll go to the church house in the morning, and I'll just stay in prayer the rest of the day. Although we looked really good last night against the Buffalo Bills. So
yeah, y'all gonna be fine, man. The Steelers figure it out every year. But that's my Browns, and we'll see how long Deshaun Watson lasts. But yeah, that was a business decision for sure. I gotta get on something because as black dads, I'll say this because we talked about the brands. Master P all week has been talking about he had one of his ugly shoes that's become a bar, as ugly as a Master P sneaker, and he has been on any platform possible with his sneaker in front of him, talking about how we need more black ownership. And then Lonzo Ball goes on to Michael Porter Jr.'s podcast and basically says he wished he could have come from out under the leadership and guidance of his father, LeVar Ball, sooner. He said it wasn't until he left LA that he realized he should have left. He talked really openly and unfortunately disparagingly about Big Baller Brand sneakers, how they used to rip, and I reconcile those two things. Master P saying we need more black ownership, especially when it comes to the sneaker space. And then Alonzo Ball saying, I should have got up under my dad's leadership even earlier. There's a podcast out now that has LeVar Ball on it. It has Dwayne Wade's father on it. It has Jaylen Brown's father on it. And it has Jason Tatum's father on it. And they have talked about how the NBA does anything and everything that they can to take the father out of the situation. They pointed out that at the draft, I'm sitting right next to my wife, and all the attention, the camera is on her. The interview is her. And it's just trying to extract the man out of the situation. And here goes Lonzo Ball going on this podcast saying he wished he would have got from under his father's guidance even earlier. Here's what I'll say, and this is my stance before I kick it to you, and then we'll get to Joy Taylor. Even if dad is messing up, let him mess up full speed. Had Lonzo Ball and LaMelo Ball supported their dad in his idea to have their own shoe, they would have struggled at first. And they did struggle at first in terms of the quality of the shoe. But by now they have it right. And they wouldn't be beholden to, I think LaMelo Ball is Puma. I'm assuming he's still Puma. And I don't know if Lonzo Ball signed with anybody yet. But they would be employers versus employees. They would be people that are hiring the 53 men on a roster versus serving as one of the people on the roster. And so LeVar Ball, with all the heat that you've taken, big baller brand, while the quality wasn't necessarily to the liking of someone like Lonzo. As a black dad, to a black dad, I say, that's the race to the bottom when we start taking the dad out of the situation, blaming him for everything that goes wrong. And he said, me and my dad are good right now, but bro, you just spent basically an entire segment of the podcast throwing your dad under the bus. How good can y'all really be? And you wouldn't be Lonzo Ball. LaMelo wouldn't be LaMelo Ball, but for all them sacrifices that dad and mom made. We are seeing the race to the bottom when it comes to being black fathers, especially when it comes to being black sports dads. And I am not naive enough to call that an accident.
Man, we could talk for 2 more hours about this.
I know. I figured it. I knew I was gonna open the can, but I gotta say it.
But let me see if I can be succinct. I think first and foremost, the dad that called out the deliberate intention to focus on the mom at the draft, and the dad is sitting right there, was not lost on me. I mean, even when I saw Ron Harper's sons at the draft, they focused on Ron Harper's wife, his son's mother. And Ron is how many times NBA champion?
I think he was at least 2 of them, maybe 3 of them. He might have been there for 3 of those.
Because he got a couple with the Bulls and a couple with the Lakers.
Yeah, I think it's just the Bulls. You're right. He got the Lakers too. My apologies. My bad,
and again, I know the mom is involved in coaching. I think she may have played college ball too. But how do you completely ignore the father? Right? And I think what's also very interesting is that whether it was Tiger Woods and his dad, they complained about him. They complained about Earl Woods. They complained about Richard Williams with Venus and Serena.
Yep.
They complained about LeVar when he was champion LaMelo, when he was champion Lonzo, when he was screaming from the rooftops who his kids would be. To a point where we were like, well, this man just shut up, but he refused to not stand up for his kids and speak to them. He refused. I mean, if you look at what Shaq just had a conversation with his son, which was on the social media circuit, where he says, you don't have to do this. He says, how many games? He said, how many things did I miss?
Yep.
How many pageants?
How many events that I couldn't go to?
Right. Yeah. And so I will say, Bobby, and again, I'm going to give you your flowers because my son benefited from this. Where you were driving your son an hour, or your sons and my son, an hour, one way, actually more than an hour, one way to basketball and driving them back. And so maybe Alonzo Ball's father didn't get it completely right. But damn it, you ungrateful SOB. Yes, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Because of everything your dad did to stand up for you. And yes, maybe your dad got rich along the way too. Yeah. But I bet you dime for donuts. If it wasn't for your dad's advocacy, the Lakers wouldn't have drafted you.
Yeah, I think he's like the number 2 pick.
Exactly.
I mean, he still had Jello Ball in the conversation and got him into a camp.
Yes. So I would hope that Bray and Thatch and Noah, when they hit the pinnacle of success, no matter the things that you and I might do right or do wrong, I hope they know that we did what we did out of love and commitment for them. And I'm gonna lean on my dad right now, and I'm gonna give a teaser to No Roadmaps a little bit. My dad says, "Let my ceiling be your floor."
Mm.
And there's a quote that we see that says, "The only man that wants you to do better than him is your father."
Facts.
So, Alonzo Ball, shame on you. If we were the NABJ, we'd give him the thumbs down award.
2 thumbs down.
Because, again, yeah, maybe the shoe didn't work out quite as well as it could have. But it doesn't mean it wasn't the right idea. Right? It doesn't mean y'all couldn't have pivoted and done something with it.
Yeah.
Right? And here's the last comment. Here's probably the most important piece. Part of adolescent development, I'm about to drop it, Bobby.
Uh-oh.
Part of adolescent development is developing independence from the body that gave you nurture.
Oh, man.
So as he's coming into his own manhood, he's creating independence from the body, his dad that gave him nurture.
Yeah.
I would only hope that as more young men do this, and young women with their moms, that we don't kick the people who sacrificed, who provided the platform, who paid the money, drove the miles, et cetera, so you would have that opportunity. You might not have to like it, but don't disgrace me publicly.
Yeah, publicly on another player's platform. I didn't like it. And again, there's a lot of issues with the design of the shoes. But hell, I remember the Nike shoe exploded when Zion Williamson was at Duke. The design flaws aren't unique to Big Baller brand. My man Shannon Stoops, thank you for joining us, man. He says we came to you and the coaching team because we were a track team. We're not only interested in our daughter getting better, but because we wanted her to fall in love with the sport. Mission accomplished. If we're not doing that in sport, right? Because you fall in love with something, it requires your effort, your time, your commitment. And the same thing is true when you fall in love with someone.
Yes.
Sports are just a bridge to life. These are just lessons to life. If it becomes just money, you know how many kids would trade places with Lonzo Ball to have a dad that takes them around to different tournaments, that fields his own team, that builds a court in the backyard, that figures out how to create a management system, that is always talking, but talking about them, is a constant bullhorn of brand development, and also set you up for independence, financial independence beyond measure. You know what I mean? People would die for that.
Hey, Bobby, let's go one step further. Let's go to
ahead.
Also the social aspects of it. When we think about the narrative that's projected, and I'm using very careful words, when we talk about the narrative that's projected about the absenteeism of Black dads, about how Black fathers aren't there, and yet Lonzo Ball will allow himself to be manipulated to jump on that bandwagon when he has benefited immensely, as you've just enumerated, from the presence of a Black dad.
Yeah. I'm going to be the voice of the race to the bottom. You know how they got the voice of God in the background when you're on the TV set? What I would have done in that moment, if I could have been the voice of the race to the bottom as a Black dad that's busy sacrificing, because, boy, the lifestyle we live in ain't easy, but we going to get it done somehow, some way. So let me be the voice on behalf of all the dads that have journeyed from place to place, gym to gym, field to field, and spent all kind of money on training, on equipment, on just nutrition, on behalf of all of those dads. I wish I could have just been in Lonzo Ball ear in that moment when he is on Michael Porter Jr.'s couch complaining about the Big Baller Brand sneakers and his dad's guidance. I want to be the voice to say, get your simple ass up and shut up and be appreciative that a man did all that damn thing. I just want to be the voice. That's all I want to be, in his ear. So it's just person to person. But I would have told him, get his simple ass up. You know, it might have been a light skin in there, one or two. Get your light skin simple ass up and get off this man couch on another light skinned man couch talking about this black dad that has bust his ass for you. Get your ass up, man.
And you know what? And here's the immaturity too. And maybe because we're a little older and we've had some experience and, dare I say, success in business, why didn't he flip it? Why did he go, yeah, man, we had that big baller shoe. It was selling for X, Y, Z. Yeah, had a little problems. But now look at the money we making for Nike and Reebok and whoever. And big baller shoes coming back. Just stay tuned. Like, just make it turn into a positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that requires at the early stages, because all of this is, we're messing with different timelines here. At the earliest stages, to build substance. I've told my son so many times, I know, man, boy, your inbox probably booming. I know, yeah, you hot right now. You're going to go back to campus and they're going to see a taller, stronger frame, and now you're going to be playing a lot. Boy, just remember, most of those people won't be in your life 2 years after you're done at that school.
Amen.
99% of the people will not be in your life 2 years afterwards. The people in your inbox, they're in somebody else's inbox, kicking you in the back and hoping you have a bad game. But we've got to constantly deliver that message, because there is a race to the bottom that's going on that is taking substance out of what is the development of kids and replacing it with some bullshit. Excuse my French.
So with that, Bobby, I'm going to help you, because I do have a daughter and I spoil my daughter. Yep, I spoil my daughter. And I'm going to have to do some things over the next couple of years. So when she starts to date, because she can't date till she's 25. Yeah,
okay, I like that. That's a good age. That's a good age. That's a good age.
But I will say that as a girl dad, I spoil my little girl. You know, she gets to go to the salon and get her manicure, pedicures. You know, she gets her hair done. She likes to go to Ulta and Sephora. But let's talk about values and where women are with values. I know you got a story you want to get to.
Oh yeah, I gotta get that
about women and values.
Yeah,
because maybe I can learn something, or maybe I'm just confused.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Joy Taylor is front and center because Joy Taylor said that if she married a man that wanted her to stay at home and not work and not pursue a career, she could do that, but $5,000 stipend, or let's call it allowance, in that situation would be insufficient for her to live under those circumstances. Now, let me just make sure I repeat myself for those in the back who may not have heard me, those who have hearing issues, or those who, like me, flat out flabbergasted when we heard it. I'm going to repeat it for emphasis. In a situation where she is married and the husband is the breadwinner, if you want to say, but she is a stay-at-home wife. In that situation.
Wait. Stay-at-home wife, not stay-at-home mother.
Stay-at-home wife. Stay-at-home
wife. She ain't got no kids to take care of.
No kids.
Just her. Not even a little cute Shih Tzu she got to walk.
Nope. Stay-at-home wife. But she goes on about how $5,000 is not enough. And while I thought that the community of amazing sisters that I know, the women across the country, would laugh their heads off when they heard it, there are women that are bumping for this shit, that are actually saying, "Oh, she's right." And then Paul Pierce on his podcast, Truth After Dark, revealed a very ugly truth, They actually did the math behind it. Hold on, I'm gonna show it to you because I couldn't believe it, but it happened. This happened. If you will, mathematicians, just pay attention. Just pay attention. How about that? Let me get it on. Here we go.
What's the basic package?
I'm telling you the basics
we need
right
a basic, we need a gold package, and we need a diamond package.
Okay, so let me explain. Basic, like my nails done. Got my nails done yesterday. My nails were $200. Nails and toes, right? Then I'm getting my eyebrows done. My eyebrows done are $130. Okay, so that's 200 plus 130. That's 330 right there already. Tax. Plus whatever tips and tips, gotcha. Right?
Gotcha.
So let's say 400. That's 400 for two things, right? Then you get your waxes. You get your wax. That's another $100 plus tip. Okay, boom. So that's 500 right now for the three things. Then these are all basics though. Then your basic getting your hair done.
So how often do you get your nails done?
Every 2 weeks.
Okay, so that's already,
eyebrows is every 2 weeks.
That's already 400. That's already
so 800 for the month.
For the month. So
for the
far.
month.
Okay, we had 800.
We had 800 for the month, right? Okay. And then you put in the hair. That's the hair is the most expensive.
Okay.
So the hair is good. Like I'm getting my hair done today. Today, I'm about to go get my hair done after this, right? After I work out. My hair is going to be $400.
Yeah, you just got your hair done last week.
Yeah, exactly.
So once a week?
No, well, I have to switch it up because I wasn't like getting it wet and doing all type of shit. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like the ocean, this, that I had going on. I was doing a lot. So now I have to redo my hair and take it out and do all this, right? So that's $400.
So we had 12 to 13.
And then if you're someone who needs to maintain your hair, another $200 for the month just to go back, wash it, get it,
So that's $2,000 for the month just on maintenance.
Yeah. Is that what it was? 2,000?
Well, I'm based on what you're saying.
Yeah. So then it's like good to 1,500 at least.
1,500 maintenance.
Now, if a woman starts getting her lashes done, you know, those are another thing. Lashes is 200. You know what I mean?
That's the maintenance?
Yeah.
What's the basic pack?
All right. That let me bring us back on. I did the math and back of the envelope. I just wanted to make sure I did the back of the envelope math. And when I added the 0 and dropped the 3, I came up with, get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. I don't understand. And I'm all for women taking care of themselves, personal hygiene. But she got to the point where she didn't even know the math. She messed up the math and she's like, oh, that's what it is? If we are saying that we are encouraging, like the red flag should go off. Sebastian Telfair talked about a lot of the wealth of the NBA being wrapped up in divorce. That's because people ain't paying attention to the red flags. Now, relationships are hard. They are very, very hard. Don't make them harder by ignoring red flags. Somebody just told you that they're going to spend $2,000 a month on maintenance. There was no mention of a single child. There is no mention of going to this thing for the child. That they just on personal maintenance. I am thankful that I never, ever dated anybody that's that high maintenance. Yes, spoil your daughters, fathers. Please do. But while spoiling them, make sure that they know that this is a luxury and not a right. When I hear Joy Taylor and this Paul Pierce co-host talk about spending money on personal care as though that's both of ours responsibility and as though I ain't got no personal care obligations, right? It just doesn't sit right with me. That's the race to the bottom. And then we wonder why men are treating these same women like objects, why they're treating these same women as transactions. There's a race to the bottom that not only this is going on, that women would talk about it publicly. This is supposed to be some stuff that they talk about behind closed doors with just women when they at the salon laughing at us. They talking about it publicly now. We are dangerously close to the bottom at this point.
Bobby, let me tell you something. When I was in my early 20s, I started making a coin or two. And
that big bag.
May she rest in peace. Unfortunately, she succumbed to lupus. I was dating a young lady, and I was feeling myself. You know, I had no kids, I had no dog. You know, so I would, give her money to get her hair done. And I give her money for her nails, and it was a gift, right? It was me gladly giving a gift. You're my lady. I want to do something nice for you. I like how you look when I see you. I'm gonna knock you off a little something. But these women don't even appreciate the gift giving. This is an expectation, and I think it speaks to values. And you mentioned why women get treated like objects, and women, please don't get mad at me, but I think you inadvertently treat yourselves like objects because you're saying that you should be paid for. I think there's a difference between gift giving, caring for, and paying for.
Yeah.
Let me say that again, ladies. I think there's a difference between gift giving, caring for, and paying for.
Yes.
And I think that if you don't have the ability to care for yourself, like to your point, Bobby, and all you people out there, don't laugh at me. Yes, I know I'm fogly challenged, but I go to a barbershop where I make appointments. It costs me $100 every time I get my head shaved, my hot towel, get the beard trimmed. And I know me spending $100 might not be what you spend on your hair with the fillers and the weaves and everything else. But if I show up to you not looking right, and I say, well, you didn't give me the $100 to get my head shaved. What about my maintenance?
They're gonna talk about you bad in the group chat, boy.
I know they're coming for me. But
if you ask a woman that you're dating to pay for your maintenance, you are going to be the topic of that group chat with her girl. Right? And at this point, if you refuse, based on Joy Taylor and this co-host in Truth After Dark, if you refuse to pay, you are also going to be the topic in the group chat. So we can't win.
Right. And here's the irony. And we could go again, something else that we could talk about for hours. There's this perception that men are not chivalrous anymore, that women got to ask a man to buy a drink, that men don't give to women. And I think that that's not the case. I think that in too many situations, all that's being asked of men is to give.
Yeah.
Right. And then
high value. They say they want a high value man. And if you can't afford it, then you shouldn't be with me. You know how many brothers can't afford what was the last number? $2,000 a month on your personal care that are great men?
I wish I had I should, how, remember on that show, to be a millionaire, then you can call somebody, get a question answered. My dad runs this data every now and again on what he calls is women's unrealistic expectations.
Oh, man.
So he has this statistic that I wish I could look up real quick. But he says women say they want a man over 6 foot tall that makes over 6 figures. And he, of course, he's retired. He ain't got enough time on his hand, but he did the research. And you know that percentage of black men in the country is like less than 5% of all black men are over 6 foot and make 6 figures.
Wow.
So how many of these women gonna get a man that's gonna afford $5,000 in your maintenance? Y'all ain't went to dinner. He ain't put no clothes on your back, no shoes on your feet, no roof over your head, and he's already out $5K. How much money do you think the average man makes? And again, you and I are blessed. We're in a space where just because we afford it, should we be writing that check?
Yeah, it's a privilege and not a right. It's not a born right to be pampered to the tune of $2,000 a month in personal care. And look, I like Joy Taylor.
Joy said 5.
She says that 5 wasn't enough. Yeah, 5 wasn't enough.
Paul Pierce's friend, but she was a discount. We might need to call her up.
Right. That's
Be
a
like,
real
Joy, you
discount.
cute, but you're too expensive.
Right. Yeah. No, I just think that when you are having these conversations publicly, and this episode goes by the title Race to the Bottom, just be careful of the image that you're giving off and the message that you're sending. Because I like what you said, man. It's like you're becoming, basically, you're paid for. You know?
Bobby, let's go back to LSU. Let's go back to LSU NIL. Wasn't it a football player from LSU who got his first NIL check and then was on social media showing all these bags that he bought for a young lady?
Yeah, about 5 or 6 go-yard bags.
Where's our value system?
We did a show called Spin That, and we went through the lyrics where they're celebrating boosters. And then they're saying, basically telling men, trick off the money. And that is the song of the summer. If you haven't seen it, go see it. The Spin That episode is a classic, but it brings us right back to this moment in this episode of Race to the Bottom. We are breaking a record. We in Flojo speed, Usain Bolt speed, right to the bottom. When you can degrade yourself down to a transaction, down to a monthly line item. And I know that that's not the only thing that you expect in a relationship, but if you lead with that, if that's your stipulation, you know how many men, not just over 6 feet and over 6 figures, but just how many men fall short of that threshold and the threshold that they just might have values that won't allow them to do that because they'd rather take that. Let's say 2,000. Let's go on the lower end and invest in our future. Invest in a vacation. Allow our kids to see a different country. Allow an experience that is second to none. And if that means that your edges might not be as crispy, then I don't see why that should be a deal breaker for a relationship. If that becomes a deal breaker for a relationship, again, we are getting very close to the bottom in terms of substance in said relationships. Don't get mad when a man treats you like a transaction when you lead with transactional conversation.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm not going to call out one of my friends, but a friend of mine was having a conversation with me. And she says, it's the men's fault. She says, because we lead with money. She said, men lead with money. So why wouldn't a woman engage a man in that space? So I want to throw that part out there because I think
she's got a point. She's got a point. So I'll be fair.
We as men have to be mindful of how we present ourselves.
She's got a point. I'll just say I personally try not to do that, but I've been young enough that where I did. And I personally, and even beyond just me on this platform, and we've even done it in this show, try to hold young men a little more responsible. The brands, right? You show up in a Rolls Royce to hand a whole bunch of free gifts to this all-black high school, and now you're putting Nike all over them. There's a whole topic that I won't get into, but I feel it passionately about the branding aspect of what that is and what you're really doing and what you're buying by giving them that access to the merch. But that's a very fair statement. And as men, we've got to own up to that too, is that we've got to lead with more than just the money that we make. But you look at the social scene and how you go to VIP not because you want to spend 20x on the bottle. You go to the VIP because you want everybody to know that you got it. And I think the saying is it ain't tricking if you got it. But when I hear Spin That, be that cavalier about 50s, 100, like we used to talk about this in close quarters. Now we got the song of the summer celebrating the onus and the obligation of men to be tricks. I'm just saying we are getting dangerously close to the bottom when that is so celebrated that it becomes the song of the summer.
So Bobby, let's have some fun for a second.
Let's do it.
Didn't that song come out of Florida?
It probably did. Young
Aren't you
Miami,
from
baby.
Florida?
Yeah. I'm from Florida. Look,
I'm just saying, what's up with Florida, baby?
hey, guilty as charged, Your Honor. You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta take the plea deal early. The first one to take the plea deal, get the best deal. Guilty as charged, Your Honor.
No,
let me plea out.
And here's one more thing I'll add too. I think this is where we also have to teach our young people and encourage this independent thought, right?
Yeah.
There used to be a time where, at least in my mind, where we heard music and it was just entertainment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the code by which we lived. Right?
Right.
Again, we're talking sports, business, entertainment. So when did the entertainment become the business that we lived our lives by?
Well, look, I thought, to answer your question, I know you're asking it more rhetorically, but to answer your question, I point to a time where the episodic TV that required writers to really go deep in thought and spend years trying to become that level of a writer was replaced by reality TV. I pointed to that as the moment that we started this race to the bottom. And now it's been replaced with now streaming.
Yes.
We started the show talking about Druski's interesting skit as it pertains to CTE.
Yes.
There used to be a time where these YouTubers would just be, all right, but there were real comedians that were preparing for a stand-up. They had to go do the chitlin circuit and get booed in front of a crowd of 6 and work on their material. We've microwaved everything. And so there are probably several other examples of how we got to this race to the bottom. But that was one of the ones I looked at. I was like, oh, really? Like, well-written shows are being replaced by the Jersey Shore? Snooki? Really? Snooki. Meanwhile, old girl from All My Children took forever to get her first Academy Award. Lucy, I can't remember her name, but took forever to get her Academy Award, and Snooki is a household name. So that's what I point to as one of the moments in history. Like, okay, I like this comment. My man Ray says, it used to be fake it till you make it. Now it's fake. Fake it is making it. He got a point. We had reality TV was a category where everybody was faking their reality.
Yeah.
And yet it was the core of entertainment. And the bottom line, we talk about business, was that the networks understood that it costs a lot less to have that on TV than to do an episode that took a cast and that took a real set that you had to build and had to manage. And so it became a bottom line decision. And I think the byproduct of it is a whole bunch of people that are actively engaged in this race to the bottom. Off my soapbox.
Man, let me tell you, you know, one thing I love about sports is that if you allow it, it will reveal all aspects of life to you.
Definitely.
Community, personal development, business, and entertainment. And that's why you do Ball Hog Sports Talk. That's why I love coming and chopping it up with you, because it's not just, you know, who scored the most points, who hit the most home runs, who ran the fastest. It's what really happened in the lives of these people.
Yeah.
And how did it impact all these different things that we, once we turn the game off, have to contend with. So shout out to B. Brown, Mr. Excessive Celebration himself, the Ball Hog.
I appreciate
Show me the money meets give me the damn ball.
Yeah.
You know, just pass it back once or twice so I can get a bucket. I don't need to get a lot
you
of
already
buckets.
know,
Let me
baby.
get 1 or 2.
You a bucket getter, baby. I know how you do. A legend from Orange. We'll go home like this then, man. In 3 seconds, each one of these topics, ball hawk spotlight moment. The ball is yours in the middle of the court. All eyes on you. We need a bucket. Frat boys at Penn State. Cocaine charges. They didn't get a RICO charge. They've never been called thugs. Does this show the race to the bottom in terms of how racially different situations are treated differently? You know how the bros have been treated with hazing. These dudes had a whole cocaine operation, and not once have they been called thug. They haven't smeared their reputation. They haven't put their face on TV and made them, perp walk and all these things. Is this evidence of the racially different ways that we handle things?
If it's not, then I don't know what is.
Yeah.
If it's not, I don't know what is. And I'll be honest with you, when I first heard that it was a fraternity, I cringed. I was like, okay, let me make sure it's not us.
Right.
Right. Because, and not that we are beyond reproach and we're, we haven't done things that have called us into question. But, our fraternity stands for something much more than what the public often sees. When
Absolutely.
you think about the service for which we stand for, the brotherhood for which we stand for, the uplift for which we stand for, those stories don't get told enough. But yes, I think that these gentlemen, and I'm being polite calling them gentlemen, but these criminals that were dealing drugs out of the frat house, that had pledges participating in the drug trade, to be treated like they are some white collar crime people who aren't straight up thugs. And trust me, you don't run a drug empire like that without there being some violence and some maliciousness that also came along with it. Let's keep it a buck.
Keep it a buck. Next one. You have an owner, Jed York of the 49ers, gets caught in a sting where he's trying to pick up a prostitute. He is arrested as a John. Another interesting race to the bottom. A billionaire picking up $150 worth of sexual pleasure. There's this an example of race to the bottom, that an owner who is a billionaire gets caught in a sting like this? And there's been others that have said, hey, I think Harvey Weinstein said it. Why are we wasting our resources on trying to pick up somebody that's trying to get sexual favor? Or is this an example of race to the bottom?
It's an absolutely race to the bottom, but I'm going to talk about it in a different terms. I think it's a race to the bottom in the failure of social relationships. The fact that people feel like they have to have a financial transaction to have a meaningful contact with a person is a race to the bottom, that our society, when it comes to social relationships, is going to hell in a handbasket. If you think about what he's saying in that effort, in that activity, is I have a need. I have no confidence that there is a person out there that I can get that from without paying a price greater than $150 or whatever it was, right? And so I just want to have this one-time transaction because I don't have faith in societal relationships. I think that's the race to the bottom.
That's deep. Other side of the race to the bottom, the race to the top. Because I always like to finish on hey, my man Ray, man. Hey, anybody that comments ball hog, lawyer, super dad with applause, my brother, thank you for that, man. I appreciate you, Ray. You know what I mean? But I'll switch it because we've been raced to the bottom. We've been negative all day. And that is our frat brother, my guy Lionel in the building.
Yes,
I will
sir.
switch it and say this. Now we got raced to the top. Kwanza Jones and her husband are now 41% owners of the San Diego Padres. That's right. I said Kwanza Jones. The sister's first name is Kwanza, last name Jones. But you better also, after the comma, put owner. You know what I'm talking about? So because that is an example of race to the top, Kwanza, And she was just so herself and authentic in the interview after they announced her as part of the investment group, new ownership investment group. It was just good to see authenticity. My sister named Kwanza, thanks for being a part of the race to the top, and we give you this. The other race to the top, man, is for the first time ever, and this is now a part of Black history. Arthur Fils and Frances Tiafoe were the tandem, both Black, in a finals of a WTA 1000 tennis event. And these brothers went out there and played in the finals, 2 Black men in 2026, the first time ever. But having said that, we got to celebrate it.
As we would say, they were balling too.
Balling, going at it, man. So that is the other side. That is the race to the top, because we can never, ever, 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 ever leave you on a negative note. And I'll bring it full circle. First, I got to give Walt D the floor. Final words. Please let people know how they can support No Roadmaps, your new podcast that is coming soon. And I know you're going to deliver. Let the people know how they can support you, Walt D.
Oh, man, thank you so much, B. Brown. First of all, thank you. They can support me by supporting you, because we support one another. And we both lift as we climb, and you know how we get down. No roadmaps, real conversations, no blueprint. No roadmaps literally is me bringing my friends, my colleagues, my networks, and even some of my adversaries to the table for real conversations. For conversations like you and I had in my backyard, where we learn from each other, and where the whole idea is that, hey, we sometimes know what direction we want to go in, but obstacles arise. Sometimes we don't know where we want to go, and we need a compass to help guide us. No roadmaps is not to be preachy, but it's to share experiences of people who have traveled the journey and want to share their story, so maybe you can take something along with you on your journey. No roadmaps. First episode drops September 15th.
September 15th. Mark your calendar, September 15th. I'm putting it in the comments too. September 15th, September 15th. Let's go.
And then you can go to our website, no-know-roadmaps.com. Sign up for announcements, learn about the host, my co-creator, Chantel Sullivan, get a sneak peek at some of our guests, get announcements. And if you want to be on the show because you got a story you want to share, you can ask and I'll have you, because it's no roadmaps, baby. Real talk.
I love it. I love it. I love it, Walt D. In addition to being fraternity brothers, in addition to being partners on a lot of events, successful events that people still talking about, might I add.
They're looking for the comeback.
They're looking for the comeback. Yeah, we have to talk. We have to talk. In addition to being brothers of the Oranges, until you moved and went down there to the good old ATL. In addition to all of that, man, now we've just shown just how much chemistry we have. I think that we are a part of the solution, and how we can give this race to the bottom some cough medicine. It's time to be a solution. And so no roadmaps is absolutely that, right? And instead of us just throwing our hands up and accepting that there is this race to the bottom that we can't do anything about, you're talking about sharing the roadmaps of others and then trying to help those who don't have a direction yet learn from those, and then also celebrate the ones that haven't identified roadmap. So I think we're a part of the solution, brother, and I appreciate you coming on and being a guest host today. Big Flow Show, I know, appreciates it, man. We'll have you back on again. I can't wait to be on your show. And
Big Flow, I miss you, big brother. See you next time, baby.
And
congrats to your son, Big Flow. And I hope I kept the seat warm for you.
And he had little Big Flow, who was bigger than Big. Well, I ain't gonna say bigger than. He a grown man now. I had, I think, 3 catches for 58 yards, a 1 of 30. It was an integral part on their comeback. They were down, I think, 10 points in the fourth, came back, tied it up, went to overtime, won by 2, 45. I think 43 was the final score. And that slippery rock out there in Pittsburgh. So shout out to Little Reg, who is a part of the Ball Hawk Sports Show, a sports talk show as well. And with that, man, we've been over 2.5 hours, but it's felt like 2 minutes because there's so much to deal with and so much to address. We'll go home with this. I started the show talking about August 28th, and the reason that I wasn't worried about keeping the show the normal duration is, whether you know it or not, being here in front of this audience and having this discussion is therapy to me. It allows me to overcome the road that I had to the bottom and spiraling and emotional, out of control, because the things that we're discussing are only made possible because a lady by the name of Betty Brown, that's right, Betty Brown, spelled with an E at the end, who raised some dynamic young people, myself included, being Betty Brown's baby, has been the honor of my life, and I wear it with a badge of pride. And I was in the show where I started it. I will not allow the tears today to be tears of sadness. They will be tears of celebration. She lived a wonderful life and touched a lot of people's lives, including a lot of students in the school system for 41 plus years, ultimately becoming a principal in Broward County. They named it the Betty Brown Day when she retired. And so I celebrate you, Mom. And thank you for all that you poured into me that allows me to be who I am on this platform and beyond. I'm your boy, B. Brown ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hawk, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Breezy, a.k.a. Councilman Brown, a.k.a. Coach Bobby, a.k.a. the man who gets to be in this seat and be a part of the journey along with you. Someone that is ever indebted for your support, and someone asking you, like I ask you every week, humbly, please like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anyone that you know, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the podcast. This week's episode is gone by the title of Race to the Bottom. It is the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. Put this in somebody's mobile device, on their laptop. Put it in their life, because it was some really good content. We had Walt D in the building as our guest host. Make sure that you go celebrate and support No Roadmaps, and make sure that you come back next week. With that, boys and girls, dogs and frogs, cats and rats, anything and everything in between, however you identify as a supporter of the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. And we gonna see you next week. We is out. Peace.